What up? What up? It's Brian with the Blurting Wild Dad live stream, back at you with another Tuesday evening. Um, Before people start filtering in, I'm gonna still try to engage the chat because that's kind of what I do. That's kind of the vibe of the show. I got a lot of ground to cover tonight. There's gonna be some stuff that I may touch on that I don't really spend a lot of time on, just because it's still fresh in the news cycle. And I'm not necessarily sure that um, what I'm adding is valuable to the ongoing discourse regarding it. There's a couple of things that happened today that, as a black father, um, I have opinions about, but I don't know if I've fully fleshed out those opinions. So we'll see where it goes, right? Um, if you're in the chat, keep it respectful. I will engage with you as long as we have some kind of underpinning of mutual respect. Um, you know, I'm not in the debate me bro space. That's not what my lane is, but I will discuss ideas. And so to me, that's more valuable than anything else. And so, um, but like tonight, we're going to talk about tonight's about the gap between what people say they believe and what they actually stand 10 toes down on when pressure shows up. I'm going to talk a little bit about give a little bit of history about black pessimism, um, uh, how it intersects with politics. And I'm rereading the book. I read the book about 3 years ago, but I'm actually rereading the book Black Pessimism. So I'm putting some thoughts around it before I get too far into it. Um, Talk about black consumer agency and how we view the use of boycotts economically as an economic tool to gain leverage. We're gonna talk about comic book stuff because we do need to return it back to comic books. And I know y'all get tired of me talking about Omega level mutants, but I'm about to talk about Omega level mutants again, in Marvel's classification, and give you some parenting stuff that I've learned from the actual trenches of doing managing kids in a residential environment. So maybe I can give you some stuff that may help you if you're parenting. So a lot of topics. So that's what we got today. Like I said, if you want to get in the chat's open. Just keep it respectful. Like I said, maybe touch on issues that you may have specific feelings about or things along those lines. As long as we keep it respectful and engaging, that's cool. Don't do the dog whistle thing. Don't do the weird stats from the Stormfront website thing that people like to do. Don't sit up there quoting those crime statistics at me and all that other stuff, man. That's not necessarily useful for discourse. And more times than not, you're talking about um, out of context statistics. I used to, in my old life, when I was doing working with a lot of juvenile justice kids, I've been involved in the crime commission meetings. I know how FBI stats work, and actually had somebody break it down to me. And so um, that's all I got. So here we go. All right. So I'm not going to mention the case du jour. Last time I did it with Chud the Builder, I'm not going to spend a heck of a whole lot of time opining about the Carmelo Anthony case right now because I'm still getting my thoughts together as it is. And if I'm going to use my platform to speak on it, I want to speak on it where my thoughts are a little bit more coherent regarding that case. But I do have some other thoughts regarding this. And so it kind of goes into our segment at the top of the show. How fucked are we? Current events. So, hi, how's it going? Thanks for jumping in. Um, that's kind of our current event segment. And really, it's an opportunity for me to talk a little bit about the news and give my take on things. Hopefully, it's useful to some of y'all. Maybe it won't be useful to others. Okay. But what we're going to talk about is black pessimism, white leftism, and selective skepticism. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. I wrote that too. um, so we're going to talk about the book Black Pessimism. And like I said, I was going to reread it anyway. It's something I read a couple years ago. But, sometimes you read something and you have other stuff going on in your world, and you don't necessarily take time to digest the words. And so I'm going to get back into it. Um, Favorite animal. Interesting. Um, Kind of partial to wolves. I like, wolves, dogs, things along those lines. That's kind of what I'm fascinated by. So, um, so here's the thing. So the book Black Pessimism is written by Frank B. Wilderson III. Okay. Black pessimism gives language to a problem of normal political language keeps softening. It asks whether anti-blackness is just a failure within society, but one inside of the way society organizes itself. And if it's the orienting force in the society. Mine is a monkey. Feeling where this is gonna go. All right. Like I said, we're gonna play it. All right, we're gonna see we're gonna play it as a lace. We're gonna see what happens with this. Um, so it asks why black people can be included in labor, culture, and elections, entertainment, and markets while still being denied full cognition as political subjects and entities. Basically, it's hollowing out our experiences and more or less treating us as objects within a society, objects that have no real agency. No articulable feelings or anything along those lines. And typically, when you objectify something, you remove the humanity from it and leave it as a vessel to be used and discarded whenever you're done with it. Like I said, I don't want to get too far into the book because I haven't read it in a while. I'm actually going back through it. So this is kind of my notes on kind of what I have from it. Okay. Like I said, the author is Frank B. Wilderson. Wilderson argues that blackness is positioned through a social death, not just ordinary exclusion. And there's a lot to this. And like I said, this may be outside the purview of this live stream, right? It may be too heavy of a topic, but I'm gonna try my best on this aspect of it. I was thinking about something really heterodox, and I can't prove or cite a source. Racism exists to serve capitalist interests. Those who target minority groups often do gain access to land and resources. Well, it's a tool. Um, but also, if we're talking about um, as a mind state, and I mentioned it last week, it's not necessarily one that's built on any rationality, but it also can be used as an effective tool to extract from a community without ever empowering that community to defend their interests. What's your favorite color? Mine's black. Despite this, they will support the movement of immigrants into the community to provide a source of labor while opposing pathways to citizenship. Yeah, well, and that's kind of what happened. Look at it like this: when this country decided who was white and who wasn't in this country, there was a decision that was made based on who they could extract resources from. For a long time, um, Italians weren't considered white. To a degree, Jewish people weren't considered white. Irish people weren't considered white in this country until you actually needed that community to provide, tax revenue and and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, they get included into the larger society. It's always been an organizing feature, a way to sort society and sort people. I feel like they're just trying to replace with lower wage workers. Every accusation is a confusing. Oh, well, you can stick around. um, we just might be talking about some kind of heady stuff here, but I got more fun stuff planned today. Um, but I feel like they're trying to kill us, replace with a low wage worker. All right, so I don't. Here's the thing: I don't like giving racists superpowers. um, I don't necessarily know if this is being executed with this level of deliberation. I just think it's a natural function of I think it's a natural function of society. I think whenever we start giving racist people superpowers or powers of precognition, it becomes problematic because you end up putting them on this higher scale. I don't think it's necessarily a plan. I think this is just the default of how the society was kind of organized, not against immigration. And I don't, that's not necessarily the way I took it, but I do think that I think there's. Hey, good evening. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. I do believe that on certain levels, that's why I've always had issues with what is the Willie Lynch letter, where we're giving uh, you know, racist superpowers. a precognition and control over black people. I don't like doing that because I don't think that it's that level of deliberation. I just think it's defaulting towards knowing that, more or less society's got your back to a degree, and they're going to be supported no matter how you treat this said group of people over here. Do you have squishy random questions? Sorry. Huh? So I think that's kind of where it's at, and I think oftentimes, when we engage with racists, we think that there's some higher level of thought that's going into why they are the way they are. Sometimes they're very good at organizing and articulating their thoughts in a way that has some kind of internal logic, but understand that that logic isn't really based on anything that's anything logical or intelligent. It's just the fact that they can articulate their gibberish a lot better than some people. So that's just how I feel about it. But yeah, I don't think that specifically it's an executable plan. I think this is just kind of there's knowing how the field lays, right? It's knowing it's kind of like using the sideline for defense. You know where the boundaries of the field are, and so you don't have to plan. You can just use the runway that's already there, and create the outcomes you want because you already know the lay of the land. You know how the field's laid out. Can't really prove it's happening on scale, but business does business at the detriment of everyone. And sometimes business looks like it defends the nation, but only because, yeah, well, the at the end of the day, because you got to look at large scale business, because there's a difference. There are levels to businesses, right? I would say so. Like I would say so. And that's probably a deeper level of conversation. Um, I don't necessarily find a lot of utility in the label, but yeah, that's where my that's where a lot of my politics orient. That's where they align to. So yeah, you can consider me left wing if you watch enough of my stuff. You can't prove it's happening. But the other side is I got issues with I got issues with online white leftism too. So there are levels and layers to this. Yeah, business does business. It's just to defend capital. I do see that, but I think at scale, I do think that large corporations are kind of like parasitic forms that just feed upon the business interests of smaller businesses, and they will devour smaller businesses to keep their doors open. Like we're not all serving. And I mentioned this on another stream. The idea of competition, right? Like this country doesn't literally like competition. Capitalism has not really been driven by competition for a while. It's anti-competition, if you're being really honest. Is about removing potential competition from the field before it even gets a chance to compete. And so when we talk about it, I think a lot of times large business interests, large corporate interests will absolutely cannibalize your individual mom and pop shops because they are competition on a smaller scale. And only by obliterating that level of competition are they do they feel like they're able to extract every single penny out of us. And America's ultimate corporation businesses will eventually eat America if we let it. And the crazy part is we're not supposed to really run this business. Like government's not supposed to be run like a corporation. That's one of the dumbest things. That's one of those weird ideas that just kind of came from, I don't know if it came from libertarian land or whatever, but this idea that government is supposed to be run like a corporation. Corporations serve to exist to serve their shareholders, according to Jack Welch. And governments are meant to provide some kind of buoyancy and keep people afloat and run and function for the people. And these two things do not align with one another. America's a brand. Yeah, I do agree with the idea that America's a brand, and we picked a shitty brand spokesman to run the show right now. Like, the president used to, before he was president, all he had was a terrible lifestyle brand that he was trying to affix to everything. And so, yeah, they've been doing that for decades. Yeah. Blockbuster was notorious for opening 2 stores close to an independent movie store to run them out of business. They did that to, I think it was Captain Video here. There's a couple of other video stores they did it to. Um, they run them out of business, and then they would offer worse selection of movies at a higher price point. That's the game. It's a filthy game. As a Scots person watching on the U.S. actually works, it's really scary how oblivious that your government, obvious is that your government has been bought out. Oh yeah. Here's the thing. A lot of people here just do politics based on vibes. It's vibe-based politics, right? Like, who scratches the itch for me? Who scratches my anger itch? Who scratches my fear itch? There's some marketing concepts. They call it Life Force 8. It's called in a book called Cash Advertising by Drew Eric Whitman, one of the two. And he talks about the core drives that human beings have. And more times than not, you're going to find commercials tap into one of those core themes, like keeping up with the Joneses, safety, fear, and things along those lines. So they tap into real exploitable human urges and drives. And that's how they brand us. That's how they get us to buy stuff. Politics is no different. There's a lot of fear-based politics, and people make political decisions based on their more base desires, their deepest, ugliest desires. People ask for a source, but you'll never find a source at the media's own, like, capital. I do believe that. I do still think that there are independent journalists. I follow a lot of independent journalists. But yeah, media is still a game. It's still a capital intensive game. There's a specific reason why the news features specific news stories on their news. You got to take it with a grain of salt. I know that when I watch something on, because pretty much the channel we land on for news is going to be ABC. We know that's a Disney affiliate, and so we're always going to be seeing some Disney related product on Good Morning America, and that's just how the game runs. So it's being cognizant of it, but understand that a lot of journalists are still in it for the love of the game. They're still in it for the craft of journalism, but they have to bend and yield to what the bosses say at the end of the day. But people don't get into journalism just to I don't think a lot of journalists get into it just to lie and extort people or manipulate people. Some of them really do get in with the best intentions, but at the end of the day, if you're going to work, you still have to toe that line. Yeah. Very much transgressive charisma. I like that. Honestly, Coca-Cola government is what we call it. I like that one. Mamdani's a master at it. Yeah. Even most leftist sources, like Amy Goldman, are just libs. Here's the thing. I do think that these labels that we affix, this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, the political labels that we affix, I do think a lot of times we do those out of convenience, and they're kind of political shorthand for what we think somebody's beliefs are, because, depending on, what we're talking about, a lot of times political beliefs are contextual if they're honest. There are limits to what you believe. For some people, this becomes a kind of a weird purity contest where you have to have the right politics, and they will align with literally anything just so that they can be on the right side of the argument in their mind at all times. And there's never any moral anchor to the things that they believe in. It's the same problem I have with conspiracy theorists, if you're being honest. A lot of conspiracy theorists, they'll believe in something and there's no moral anchor to anything that makes sense, and so they will just let the conspiracy theory take them to crazy stuff. And I think a lot of times people that don't really have serious politics, they're just in politics for the vibes. They just want to have the right position as opposed to the one that makes sense in the framework of life that they've experienced. If you go Maximum Linus channel, they're just liberals. Again, we have to define what is the defining line between what we consider a leftist, what we consider a liberal, what we consider centrist, what we consider libertarian, what we consider right winger. Like, what are the defining characteristics? Because a lot of them, if we're looking at sociology, you can look at a sociology book, and it runs into conflict with a lot of the general definitions that we use to label people politically. Just stuff we can't say. Okay. Streamers getting his P transgressive charisma. I like that. I need to actually, I want to look a little bit more into the transgressive charisma. I like that. Essentially, we believe in idealism. We just end up being a liberal. Are liberals solely wrong for being liberal? I do think there's a labeling aspect of it, because there's an aspect of where we defined what a liberal was. And in a lot of cases, it's shorthand for optimistic dreamer who's ineffectual or whatever. And I don't necessarily know that that's 100% a useful analysis of it. But also, um, in my adventures in more leftists, arguing with white leftists online, I find that oftentimes they'll call anybody who disagrees with them a liberal. And even if you're forcing them to look at how race kind of may shape their belief system, again, we go back to thinking that white is neutral. It's just neutral, and everything else has a connotation to it. And a lot of times white leftists fall into that trap where they think that their leftism makes them neutral or immune from a lot of the biases that impact that shape politics, once the racial politics of things, if I'm making sense. No, they're wiring for a material could. Well, I mean, I do think that there's a level of, like, for me, I would almost consider myself more of a pragmatist. Like, I'm a black pragmatist. I understand that you do need to challenge people on their thinking, and sometimes that challenging people and getting in their face is an uncomfortable process. But challenge people about their convictions. But I also do understand the need to coalition build. And so when I jump on, like, specifically Threads is where I was, when I jump onto Threads, and and a lot of it was about that dude. And this is a hot button issue. I'll be honest with you. The entire Grand Platinum thing was a really hot button issue on my Twitter, on my Threads feed earlier this week. When you scratch that, people got super defensive and were willing to shut down a lot of critical faculties in ways that were perceiving things just to lay down a line of defense for dude. And I'm like, okay, you can like dude. I'm not saying, you're not allowed to like Plattner and things along those lines, but can we interrogate some of the things that some of the questionable stuff? Because I feel like he didn't necessarily get vetted with the same degree that we vet other politicians before they enter the national stage, if that makes sense. This, okay, so I'm gonna just throw this out here. I'm piss somebody off, but I'm throwing it out here. The thing, I went on Threads and basically said, hey man, this dude did the Blackwater thing, ex-military, anti-Zionist, cool, okay, I'll rock with that one. Anti-establishment, questionable Nazi tattoo thing, that he's now saying that he had no idea of. This dude smells, in my mind, he smells like a militiaman. Like, that's what it's, a militiaman. It smells like a militiaman to me. Not this progressive hero this progressive guy that's going to save everybody. And that's just my take on it. I didn't critique or say that he wasn't 100% in your convictions and anything. I'm just asking the question. And the response I got, you would have thought I insulted this entire man's, I undermined his entire political, he's a fraud, he's a phony. You would have thought I said all of that stuff. And all I'm saying is he reads like a militiaman to me. And where I'm at, I see this shade, I see this kind of dude often. With Trump, you need two brain cells. With Graham, you kind of have to, they kind of hand you the answer. He's literally branded. I think, but see, and that's what my problem is. Well, let me jump back. final coalition building, we have to win at the same time, but I'm going to hold my own politics. Yeah, but that's the part of the coalition thing. You have to decide what part of your politics you're willing to negotiate with to find agreement and alignment with somebody else. And oftentimes, I don't think leftists do that in an effective manner. It's all calling you all kinds of shit libs and everything else. How many times I got called a Zionist? Like, what? Me? Me? Oh, because I don't like a flannel dude, who had the Nazi tattoo that he could barely explain. Come on, man. I got called Zion, all kinds of other stuff, shit lib and all this other stuff. I'm like, I just don't like your boy, man. Like, I could not like your politician without it turning into, you know, all the other stuff that you guys are turning into. But this is coalition building. If you're trying to coalition build, what's with all I'm gonna belittle you and insult you? Like, I don't want to form coalition with that. And I'm fine with getting rid of my personal layers of comfort, but I'm not gonna sit there and let you disrespect me and decide we go and then pretend like we gonna hold hands and protest this thing and fight the system together, bro. There has to be some layer of trust. Why do we constantly forgive red flags with these type of people while holding non-white people and politicians in the same purity? That's where the black pessimism part comes in. That's where the Afro pessimism part comes in. Because it feels like being black is always a trump card in it, specifically because I'll talk narrowly about black people because that's where I'm at. I can't speak to other non-black minorities. I feel like black is that trump card. That is the thing that changes the dynamic and flavor of the conversation that we're having in a lot of cases. It doesn't take a single narrow. I can see imagine this where. Well, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, the Nazi tattoo was there, and instead of having the interrogative questions like, so it took you 18 years. When did you just realize this when somebody brought it up? How did you put a tattoo on your body and you never had any intellectual curiosity about it over 18 years about what it meant? Or did you get it at a point in time where you were doing your edgelord phase and now you've grown out of edgelord phase? That's a fair thing. I've seen a lot of white dudes do that. I've seen a lot of white folks do that online where they're going through their edgelord phase and then they got out of their edgelord phase. They may have been going through some troubled times, or they just may have been just a natural byproduct of them testing out their emotional boundaries as they got older. But if you were going through edgelord phase and stand 10 toes down and say, yeah, I was going through some shit and that's where I got it from and I apologize for it. Or I didn't even think about it, but the non-answers that he was giving wasn't a red flag to people. And I'm like, that's suspect, but he's not my candidate, right? I don't have a dog in this fight. All I'm saying is you stuck with him. You brought him here, so you stuck with him. If we get another Fetterman, that's kind of on y'all. If he's Fetterman again, that's y'all. Like, that's your boy. That's your man. Stick with him. I don't have to like him, but he's gonna be, so hope he doesn't hurt people. Again, that's how I view it. Like, hey, that's your man. You stuck with him now. Y'all didn't vet this dude. And y'all didn't put him up to the same layers of scrutiny that you put other politicians up to who are a little bit a shade more center or right than you are. You put them through this unyielding gauntlet of skepticism and scrutiny with ridiculous expectations about what they were supposed to do, and I'm talking narrowly about Harris. Like, I mean, what do y'all think a vice president's power really is? To talk about the way that we interface with other nations or whatnot. They don't really have that much power. They're kind of figureheads in that sense. They're the heads of the Senate, and that's really it. And so I think that there was this high level of scrutiny on one end, but we're just gonna, youthful indiscretion. I mean, who didn't have a racist phase? And that ends up being the story. Oh man, he's at a racist phase. No. Maine is mostly white people. Well, there are black people up there. That's the thing, though. And black Mainers are saying, "Hey, this is basically black folks in Maine are basically saying this is as good as we can do. This is as good as we. This is the best we can hope for right now, guys. Sorry. Yeah, we still got Stephen King up here though. With his problematic ass sometimes, but this is as good as it gets for us, and so I'm gonna defer to them on this. Well, they're prosecutors who promise not to prosecute, and then they don't prosecute and end up harming others. So why be concerned about what this guy would be any different? Because in my mind, one thing doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the other. And I don't think prosecutors are opting not to prosecute. I think oftentimes it comes down to being smart about how you use that seat in office. Like I said, I've been on a number of youth crime commissions, man. I've done that work, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Locking people up and putting them in jail is not a deterrent for anything. It's never been a deterrent. Like putting people in jail has never deterred anybody from crime. And that's the reality of things. The people that are deterred from crime, typically locking them up isn't going to make them decide, well, I'm not going to do this. Now, if you are saying, I don't ever want to go to jail, that's a different layer. You're probably not wired, or you're not facing desperate enough situations to even make that calculated risk. But locking people up has never been a deterrent on any level, any way, shape, or form. And I think we're talking about reform, more prison reform, and the carceral state. Um, if locking people up improved crime rates, then we should be the safest country in the world because that's all we ever do. That's kind of a leap. They got elected on the platform of not prosecuting, and they didn't. Uh, I feel like that's kind of a reductive way of saying it. I think the idea that locking people up first without seeking alternatives to detention is kind of where that goes. Again, the idea of jail and just incarcerating people at some point, because in my state specifically, the way the juvenile justice system is, I'm talking about juveniles narrowly, but it's supposed to be a real bit rehabilitative model, not a punishment based model. And so you don't get sentenced to a specific amount of time. You get sentenced to appropriate levels of care. You complete those appropriate levels of care, then you get to go home. Okay. Um, if the idea is locking people up and never repairing the things that brought them in the door in the first place, all you're doing is just setting up a revolving door of people likely to recidivate. And that's kind of what happens. And so I think what's happening is you're seeing um, DAs specifically trying to talk about other ways to get to address criminal behavior, because more times than not, when you look at the root cause of criminal behavior, it's not just this person wanted to go crime. Like that's not how it is. The biggest deterrent is giving people, yeah, any support and wages, because you look at any city where they've addressed poverty, joblessness, and things along those lines. When they've run job programs, crime rates do go down. And crime, is kind of a lagging indicator of other weaknesses in your social safety nets. Making assumptions. There's a study that says most restrictive society doesn't make a safer society. That's the thing. And oftentimes when you put people in jail, they're going to get out eventually. And I think that's the piece that we don't really think about. Like you throw somebody in a jail cell, eventually they're going to get out at some point in time. And if that's the only plan you have for them, and you never provide any framework for them to be a better person when they come out, all you're doing is you're just delaying the inevitable, you know? And that's really what's happening is, and so when you look at DAs and prosecutors or whatnot, they're saying this old model of just warehousing people is not working, and we need to find other ways as opposed to the prosecute first mentality. Now, Am I a complete abolitionist? No, I'm not. Unfortunately, that's part of where my political nature. I do believe that there's some people that it just needs to be uh, extracted from society because they are a threat to people that we can't always protect equally. And so I'm not a complete abolitionist, but I understand the framework of a lot of what the arguments that they're making. It must never go after the biggest criminals and the most expensive crimes. No, hell no, because they pay for everything. Shoot. they're the ones that make they're the ones that make the world go around. They're the ones that keep that money flowing. Baby. You got to make sure that that money's still going. And I think that's one of the reasons that we never go after the white collar guys that nuke somebody's trust fund and leave old people destitute. No, no, no. But man, you stole from that store, bro. We about to put you under the jail. Um, I think about that little boy. I could see his face. He got locked in Rikers um, for a backpack for being accused of stealing a backpack that he didn't steal. Got put in Rikers as a minor, and then he was held there for a couple of years because he didn't have the money to get out, and so you had this child in Rikers, and when he got out, he committed suicide because he couldn't readjust over a bag he didn't steal. I gotta pull his name up because it's not kid in Rikers over backpack. I gotta say the young man's name. Khalif Browder, 16 years old from the Bronx, sent to Rikers Island in 2010 after being accused of stealing a backpack because his family couldn't afford $3,000 bail. He was held in Rikers Island for 3 years awaiting trial, never convicted of any crime. During the time, he was beaten by guards and inmates and spent 800 days in solitary confinement. This is a 16-year-old child. Charges were early dismissed when he was released in 2013. Trauma he endured as incarceration led to ongoing mental health struggles, and he tragically died by suicide at the age of 22. There was no reason for jail to even be in a solution for that because one, he's never convicted of any crime. Two, he was held in Rikers Island because his parents, he's basically debtor's prison because his parents couldn't afford to pay $3,000. And he's not here anymore. So I don't know. Jail is not the answer. Just warehousing people is never going to be the answer or the solution that we're going to go for. And I think when we're talking about prosecutors who don't prosecute, I do think that that's kind of where that falls. I think they're looking for other answers besides lock people in jail because that's the expedient answer. Specifically, if you never had to deal with if your family has never had to interface with the jail system in any way, shape, or form, it's one way. You have one way of beliefs, but a lot of times, if you actually had to interface with it on a daily basis, you would see where the gaps are. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the case. That is an assumption on my part, but you have a different perspective when you are at the mercy of the jail system because it's exploitive for the inmates because they're getting free labor out of them, but then also the families have to pay. The families end up paying into the jail system just to have access to their loved ones. And so it's an exploitative model. Younger people are criminal despite having less money. You're more likely to get robbed and killed by a black old head boomer or some Gen X Karen or millennial. Yeah, I don't know. I think we overblow crime anyway in this country because it goes back to what we were talking about with the news. It goes back to how we're talking about how the news is framed. It's framed for entertainment purposes. Crime rates are down. Violent crime rates are down in most instances. But since it draws attention to the screen, that's the thing that gets reported. On 24-hour news cycles, that's what gets scrolled across the bottom of the screen. How many people got shot in this thing? How many people got killed in this thing? And so we constantly get fed a diet of all the violent crime that's happening in the country, and we end up assuming that it's much bigger than it actually is. Summer of Love 2 before GTS is crazy. Not yet. Summer till 21. I didn't get that dog whistle. It's not about just the news conservatives profit off of fears of crime. Well, yeah, and that's how you sell people. Like that's a political thing, right? Um, like I said, how many political commercials are fear based? How many times are they shown images of where you could even look at the color palette of the commercial? Gray slate, sinister looking face goes across the screen, such and such is soft on crime, or you show the border. It could be the border, old stock video of the border from 2012 that they're showing, and violent criminals are coming to blah, 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 blah. That's how the commercials are constructed. They're tapping into your fear centers, they're tapping into people's fear centers. Um, and they don't necessarily have anything productive to say. It's just these people are coming to get your stuff. This politician will keep them from getting your stuff. Stats don't lie. Yeah, we react to negativity more, but I think that's just a natural human condition. Because people will still want protection of loved ones and security and things along those lines, but we don't look at who's actually exploitative of our young people. I used to talk about it all the time when I was running my emergency youth program. I said, talking to people about human trafficking is like you get sold the bill of goods that human traffickers are these people from another country that live in a van and they just run around kidnapping people. So you need to be worried about that couple on your street, those quiet people that are on your street that don't have children but always seem to have children around the house. Those are people you need to worry about. Those are typically human traffickers, but since they don't meet the vibe, they don't look the role of the human trafficker, there's no suspicion towards them. Um, you know, I'm in Omaha. College World Series is coming up. That is a huge, 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 huge human trafficking event that happens every single year in this state. And I've been pretty much the only one saying it up until recently. I just saw something on the news where they say they're stepping up police enforcement because of all the trafficking that goes around during the CWS. It's a huge child trafficking event. It's not necessarily the fault of the CWS in and of itself. It's just a function of having all these people with disposable income in one place. But we don't think about that side of human trafficking. We don't think about the unassuming family, the unassuming couple in the suburbs. We think about the shadowy person in the van. That's the real. All right, I missed a couple. Let me catch up, guys. Or did I miss a couple? Young people are COVID fucked them all over. Last generation, to be fair. I don't know. I don't see AI as the great bad boogeyman of things. I think there are other horrors that are out here existing that we don't even pay attention to. You know, I don't think generative AI is the end all be all of all things because the data centers would exist. Like, because we like to stream music too, we like to stream movies too, and those are polluting the environment too. I think we latch on to new things because a lot of the horrors that we face in the regular world are too incomprehensible to put words around. So we have to latch on to the things that we can explain. That's dark. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's a bad thing. I'm not talking about stats. I'm saying they're being weaponized to make us hyper focus on those fears instead of focusing on things like healthcare and living wage. Just because those are things that actually improve the living condition. If you improve the material condition of people in this country, the people that have all the power that can force you to work these dead end jobs with no wages and no health benefits, they end up losing their ability to force people into those positions, and they end up losing their access to easier, cheap labor. That's what happens when people have options and opportunities. That's why, for a lot of times, I remember when COVID came down, a lot of people were freaking out. I was doing some videography work um, for a local financial services firm. And it wasn't their position, but one of their guests was sitting there openly talking about, man, you're giving all these poor people all this money. He's talking about the um, stimulus check, and talking about how it's just going to lead to the ruination of all these poor people. They're not going to be able to handle it. And the question was, and we're in there, and I'm recording, so I can't really speak. But somebody else, one of the other financial advisors, was like, so we're just supposed to let people starve? He's like, well, maybe, because it upholds his work. That in his world, that making sure that people have adequate food interferes with his ability to go buy new golf clubs. You can't have that. And that's the kind of world that we live in. And so when COVID was kind of this great equalizer in terms of economics, where you had all these people had access to all this money, that's where you find all these, the Wall Street bets guys and all that other stuff. It was this nihilistic, like, we're just going to gamble on the stock market like all these other guys. And some of them walked away millionaires. I do think as long as they keep us focusing on all the bullshit, um, they they have the ability to just do whatever they want to. They get a chance to get us to look the other way, because when you're focused on survival, when you're focused on survival, that's what you're laser focusing on. How am I going to survive this day to get to this day to this day? You can't look at what they're doing over here on this chessboard to screw you over down the road. You're focused on your day to day. All right, let me catch up. So there's a different subject. The thing is dangerous to exist. It's the antichrist of the powerful. Don't buy it. Religion is gross, to be fair. Marketing is too powerful. The average citizen is not great marketing. It depends on who you're marketing it to. Be our own boss and make our own money. They're lying about the technology, what the technology actually is. There's going to be some layers I do agree, because I've been using some form of. I'm a tech nerd, and I work in done a lot of tech stuff that's not necessarily tied to any business. It's just for shits and gigs, and I've been using some form of different forms of AI, artificial intelligence, large language models, and all the other stuff since the 20 teens. Like, this stuff isn't new to me. Just drunk type E. No, man, I'm with you. I'm with you. Stay with us. Stay with us. How much corporate national should get in subsidies? Right. A vast political debate. All right, so let me jump back here, because I got a couple of different threads here I want to talk about. How much should the international corporation get in subsidies? Subsidies are the free money that we give people, right? Maddie, you and I, we both live in kind of farm country, right? The biggest expense, the biggest line item expense in a lot of our state's budget, these and other things, is these farmers get. It is the most tax advantaged gig that you're ever going to find. Farmers don't pay shit in taxes a lot of times, and that's not slandering them, but it's super tax advantage to be a large scale farmer. Now, if you're a smaller scale farmer, you absolutely get hosed on the proposition. But we give subsidies to all kinds of stuff, but we won't give subsidies to feed kids or house people, which is telling, because we have to keep people dependent. We have to keep people living on the edge to keep them under control. philosophical debate. Depends on if it helps your nation and state. I do agree with that. I'm a socialist of sorts. All right, let's go. If they can't, it can't replace us. It's not capable. It's not normative. Stress this. We remove the. We cannot waste water on golf courses. More water. I've actually talked about this with another friend of mine in the space. They're overselling. I mean, a lot of the stuff you see about AI is a hype job. They're overselling what it can actually do in a lot of aspects. It's at this point, it's still tool. It's still a tool, and some people are using it to shut their brains off. And that check will come get cashed at some point in time. But right now it's a tool and people are selling it as a solution, and tools aren't always the end all be all solution. And a lot of these tech companies are kind of finding out the hard way. They've oversold what these AI packages can do. At best, it can shorten the gap between a project getting started and a project getting done, but replacing a human being is a lot harder. They're even trying. I saw it on McDonald's. Like they're talking about McDonald's is using AI to, try to replace cashiers or whatnot. I was botching people's orders left and right. So it's not, the technology isn't there yet. Hell, they can't even get facial recognition stuff to detect black and brown faces the right way. So I do feel like we're being sold a bill of goods on that aspect of it, but it's a good news source and compelling news story. All right, let me catch up. Capitalism must go. Not everyone should be freed. I don't necessarily agree with that one. And housed. I think that there's a standard living should be available to those that want it. Not everybody wants a house, but you should have the option to get one. You should have the ability and capability to secure one without having to auction off your firstborn child to do so. And I'm not gonna front. We got lucky. We got into our house in between two bubbles, and it helped out a ton. They are control us. Is it weird I'm going too good? They don't need AI to replace us. Going back to the Bolsheviks. Okay, my chat is going other places. Cool. Guys, can I get on to my next thing? I'm still gonna talk. I'm still got some political stuff, but let me see what else I got on the agenda because I'm going far afield. I'm gonna say that good AI has problems with facial recognition. Like, I'm a camera nerd. It was a big deal a while ago to get chips that could actually color grade for black people. And that's a pretty recent development. A lot of time when you start dealing with algorithms specifically, they are built in with the biases of the people that program them. And so when they were doing a lot of the early stage facial recognition programming, they didn't have a diverse group of people in the room to code it. And so as a result, there's no diversity within how faces that can be recognized as human beings. That's a problem that's persisted in the development of facial recognition technology for a while. Because like I said, an algorithm is going to carry the biases of the people that program it. That's why facial recognition software is lagging behind. That's why the thing that scares me more than anything else is all these automated cars out here. I don't trust it. I don't trust people that drive. I don't trust humans behind the wheel. I sure as heck don't want to trust this robot that can't tell the difference between a black person and a speed bump. Cool on that, bro. That seems to be more of a threat, and I don't understand. Like, I'm already weirded out about the idea that we call somebody and jump in the back of a stranger's car. I think that's weird. But now I'm gonna call somebody and jump in the back of a robot's car. I've seen Total Recall, bro. The Paul Verhoeven Total Recall. I've seen how this story goes. I don't trust it. To me, that's the big threat that's looming. Just like black people. I was thinking of the police cameras. Yeah, that's what the problem is. That's, man. here's the thing: we have decided that we are a surveillance state now, which is wild to me, bro. Like, it's wild the fact that we're just cool. Like, yeah, man, I put a camera on my doorbell. You could see everybody that comes and goes in my house, and I signed away my rights to this doorbell camera just by activating it. That little dude come up to my door like, I could put a camera in your doorbell. No, the fuck you can't. I was like, is that camera attached to a server that's in my house? No, it's attached to our servers. We monitor that. I don't think so, my friend. But that's the level of surveillance we're comfortable with at this point in time. It's such a weird concept to me. Is dystopian. Yeah, I do agree about that. At regular cameras, that sucks. AI policing is an absolute fucking disaster, bro. If you really want to get a dim view of society, look at what Palantir has been rolling out with, because if you don't know the kind of the history of Palantir, a lot of it was that I don't necessarily think I think this assistive. Me and my friend, one of my business partners had this conversation earlier today. But anyways, kind of a predictive model that PayPal had kind of created, where it could detect fraud through a bunch of different predictive stuff or whatnot. And that's kind of the basis of Palantir, right? So they ended up selling that to a couple of major police forces around the country. And so basically we got Minority Report running in the NYPD and some departments in Florida and California and Georgia and stuff. And they're using this predictive AI to determine who's likely to recidivate, where the crime's going to happen, and all this other stuff. That's what's driving a lot of this. That's what AI policing is. We should absolutely be shocked and horrified that it exists. We should be shocked and horrified. But we're not. We're talking about people whipping up bad social media posts on AI. And AI drone warfare. The fact that they were mad at was it Anthropic, because Anthropic didn't want to turn over their model, the program drone strikes and kill people. Like, they're like, nah, we don't want to do that. And they're like, oh, you're kicked out of the government. You could never have a government contract again. And Anthropic's like, what? Yeah. You got to let us take your AI model and use it to kill people autonomously with no people in the loop. AI police cars scare me. Don't worry about that. They already have AI on your police force deciding if your likelihood of being a criminal. Let's see. We can have Timu then got a total actual dictator. Yeah, I actually do agree with that. We have gone full blown surveillance state. I thought RoboCop was cool too. I just thought it was like a satire. I didn't think it was like a biography of things that were to pass. I would have opted out at that point. Like, hey man, maybe we need to get some control over this. Yeah, it was a warning. Paul Verhoeven was really on to something with RoboCop. Shall be Blade Runner. Blade Runner was awesome. The porpoise is doing that. RoboCop was always a warning call. That's why I think a lot of people didn't understand it. I think they didn't see what it was. RoboCop was really a movie that was a send up of late 80s, obsession with this capitalism thing and how obsessed we were with winning the game of capitalism and how dystopian it was to let corporations just take over everything. And it just went right past us. A lot of people missed the satire. They still didn't get it. Some people still don't understand that Paul Verhoeven was writing a satire with Starship Troopers. It's crazy business. Calling out gentrification, right? New Detroit, old Detroit, Delta City, right? I do think, and that's why I wasn't too mad about the RoboCop remake. I know a lot of people hated it, but I do think they got some beats right with it. There are other beats that just didn't connect. Blade Runner and Clockwork Orange, they have their place, and they have their political commentary and stuff like that. But I was too young. I remember seeing Blade Runner when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and it just went right over my head. And I'm like, I didn't get into Blade Runner until I got older, but I saw RoboCop in theaters. Bob's looking at this RoboCop when I was like 8 years old in theaters, in all of its X-rated glory. Escape from New York. I love that movie. I saw that when I was little too. Warriors is one of my favorite. Um, I think I have a soft spot for these kind of dystopian future movies. Does that say something about me? I feel like we're gonna give AI human rights and giving them personal body, like give AI autonomy. Um, I don't know. I don't think the technology is going to be I think we are years and years and years off from that. Even though there's some people that are opting for AI relationships and AI, romantic partners. Man, it's a whole vibe, right? Warriors was my joint. I love that movie. I got it on. I actually when it first came out on DVD, I got the edition that dropped. All right, let me see where I'm at on my notes here because I do think I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time with Afro pessimism once I actually start digging into the book because I do think there's some useful frameworks in there, but I don't want to start speaking at it without having reread the book. Okay, so we're gonna skip a lot of stuff. We talked about Graham Plattner. He's not my candidate. That's all I want to say about it. We talked about the black leftism, white leftism kind of battle that's going on online. Let's see, give them body, anthropomorphize them. Yeah, I don't know. I think the way that I think the boogeyman status that AI has, and we're gonna give them bodies and turn them into automatrons that walk around. We might. Then we would really be in Blade Runner, wouldn't we? Mostly harmless. I mean, we already see what the robots are doing. That robot in China kicked that kid in the stomach, and they shut it down immediately. I don't necessarily believe that we can fix all the damage. Say fuck Hassan. Fuck he called me. Oh man, we banging on Hassan, man. I don't necessarily have any sentiment regarding Hassan, bro. Like I've kind of I think I'm not necessarily his age cohort or demographic. Angry, pissed off, hyper vigilant leftist who just likes to scream on people. I'm cool on that, bro. He says some wild out of pocket shit to people. And I grew up in a time where there are certain things you could say to a human being and certain things that there's certain things you could say to another adult without and certain things you couldn't. And Hassan crossed that line. He to me, he's that hyper online leftist dude who's never been who's never had hands placed on him for talking crazy to somebody. I've encountered a lot of them in online spaces. I got death threats from some of them, bro. Back in the days. Like, when I was, I got death threats from some of them cats. Like, oh, you're in online space. You think I care about you saying you're gonna kill me? I don't really care. You can kill me on your best day. So, but I also think that his brand polarizing politics is also that's what wins his audience over. His audience likes being confrontational. Yeah, he is. His uncle runs, was it the Young Turks, and his uncle is into money. Has money too. All right, so I'm gonna get past a lot of this stuff. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the DC So White protests and kind of what happened. I don't know the 100% backstory of that. I was all down for it, and not pulling any DC books until we got some black character. Like, it's been like, was it 2100 days since they've had a mainline black character? Before it was like 9,000 days, and even before that we were talking about a number of years. And it sounds small, but to not have a main, like, the reason why I got into comic books, like, that's My mom taught me how to read using comic books, and she would buy like Black Panther and Luke Cage, and I have a Black Lightning book, one of the earliest ones and stuff. She was really big about me seeing myself as the hero in the stories at times, and I think we miss a lot of that. And so that's why to me the protest mattered. And I do think that there is something to be said about how because mass media is only going to do what mass media does, right? Like we're not, mass media isn't going to be this winning force of was not going to win the revolution for you. At best, it's going to try to placate the masses, but at the same time, we all need distraction. We all need entertainment sometimes, and there's a Black comic book audience, and we buy comic books just like anybody else. And people say, well, if you want more Black comic books, Black people need to go buy comic books. We're buying the comic books. We're not the ones that are buying the comic books, right? We're not buying. It's not us that aren't buying the comic books. Oh wait, that's why he's at that level, right? Yeah. Oh shoot, Hassan, man, shoot, his uncle had money, bro. Like, and I know he had a falling out with his uncle over money things, but I mean, come on, man. Man is a U.S. citizen to one of our closest allies. Speaking of, okay, just finished Spider Noir and it's so good. I got to get on it. So is it a high recommend, Maddie? Let me know. Because I'm about to get into it. Shoot. I actually have it, and I actually looked at it and right after the stream last week. I actually had to pull up I would have to pull it up. Last Ronin, yeah, I'm ready for that, man. People weren't ready for that. The Last Ronin, bro. I'm down. That I'm excited about that, bro. I think I like the old grimy TNMT stuff, and what they did to my boy. Like it hurts me to see what they're doing to my guys, but like I remember the IDW turtles, bro. Like it was some dark shit. Like when they broke Donatello in half, Jesus. So I'm down for the Last Ronin. Yeah, oh yeah, this is Destro, bro. I saw this online, instantly had to cop it. Bit of a slow start. All right, but wanted second season so much. I'm hoping, I'm crossing my fingers. My grandma's 89. It was still wants the second season. I want to see it. I'm getting it started hopefully this weekend. I had a couple of different things pop up, but I really do want to get it started. It's on my list to actually start powering through it. So, but yeah, I think that the entire DC so white thing. I think I'm weirded out by people that are mad at somebody saying we're boycotting X, Y, and Z. Because I'm not, when people say we're boycotting, they're asking for Black people to boycott DC Comics, and more than just Black folks, they're asking people to boycott DC Comics until they actually gave Black writers and a Black team a book that's viable. Because they let that Green Arrow book cook for a long time. Even Scott Snyder said that book was kind of a failure, and they let that Green Arrow book cook for like 13 months with support. And a Black book will get started and it doesn't get any support. It doesn't get the same level of support to that Green Arrow, like that Green Arrow book that never found an audience. And that's all they're asking for. And I know I'm weirded out by people that get mad when somebody says, you know what, I'm going to choose not to invest my money in that until they invest their money in what I want to see. Thank you. Okay, I got you. Robbie Robertson, UI. I know what happens to Robbie in the comic books. So, in the Spider Noir comic books. So, yeah, that one scares me. um, let's see. You said Robbie Robertson UI, or I'll do. Let me type in Noir. See if that works. Oh yeah, suit is tough. I'm just scared about what they're gonna do to him. I'm terrified because I read the comic books, bro, and yeah. I'll be honest with you. They don't do my boy. They do him kind of filthy in the comics. And I hope that's not spoilers for anybody. Um, I'm really hope that's not spoilers for anybody. But yeah, in the comic books, they kind of do Robbie kind of filthy. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm gonna get started on it hopefully this weekend, and see where it goes. But the comics, I'm hoping that they kind of balance because the comics were super dark. Well, I mean noir. I mean, there's going to be so much you're going to do with the concept of noir, but the comic book was like bleak and depressing. So we'll see what happens. Let me look at the suit. The suits are tough. Yeah, the suits are tough. I'm not gonna lie. I like that. I wish I had an occasion to wear that. He might be the best dressed person in the entire MC. Hey, if he beats, he's got competition, man. My boy, Ben Grimm in that Fantastic Four First Steps movie. Ben Grimm had that shit on, like he was clean the entire. I'm sitting there watching the movie. My wife like, yo, Ben got that shit on, bro. Like I'm trying to figure out where the trench coat and everything. Like I need that. I need that in my collection. They had so much money. Suits, not UI. That's what I figured. I figured that out. I looked at his suits. The turtles scare me. A little might have went a little too woke. I don't know. I like the last Ronin era. That was the last. That was an interesting story. I like Elseworlds. I hope that. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. Like these apocalyptic end time stories, I do think that there's some use for them. I don't necessarily mind them too much, but I hate when they end up becoming their own universe, right? Like, I remember, when the movie Logan dropped, and then all of a sudden there was this big rush to add more additions onto the Old Man Logan story, which we don't really need. We ended up getting a rebooted Maestro book with the Hulk. I didn't want to see that. I didn't necessarily want to see the Maestro doing things again. I don't, and so I really hope that they leave it as this self-contained thing and not try to expand it out. Like I don't care about the next generation of the turtles. I just want to see. Uh, I'm not going to spoil it, y'all. So I know what the last Ronin is. If you haven't read it, go check it out. But I don't want to see, like, I want to see the story and then don't give me all the other stuff afterwards. Like I don't need the continuation of it. If they're going to write a continuation of it, let's write it in a comic book, see if it works. But I don't, yeah, I get where you're going with it though. That's how I feel about it, at least. Overdo the stakes too much. Sorry, I'm catching up. Who cares? To say the least. Yeah, I love the last Ronin. I love the framing of it. Again, it's a return to the really dark, super dark turtle stories. And nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. I wish I could see it. Let me see if I can. Shoot, I can't see it. You guys may be able to, but I can't pull it up. I can't pull up links in StreamYard again. Have a great stream. I'm making another cocktail. I'll probably start streaming myself. All right, man. Thanks for tuning in. Um, come powwow with us anytime. Pour one for me too. All right. New trailer. That's the last Ronin. I'm gonna check it out. I talked about the boycott. I'm not gonna get too much into depressing stuff, guys. I'm trying to keep it a little bit lighthearted, but a lot of really bleak stuff came out with that boycott. People were mad. Like racists really got mad about the fact that black people weren't going to spend their money on the comic books that didn't include them, and people felt ways about it and decided to make entire YouTube videos about said thing, which is weird to me. Um, I don't know. It's always been weird to me where people decide, hey, I'm not going to invest my money in this thing uh, that doesn't represent me, and people get mad at you about it. Just a weird thing. Like we're just sources of capital to be extracted. It's being made by the Ninja. Oh, Ninja Gaiden. All right, let me check it out. I'm gonna put it up on the screen here so I can see. Then we're gonna talk about mutants. Let's see. Movie. So we're gonna talk about. I'm jumping around here. Combat's about to go crazy. I think so. I'm locked in, bro. I am locked in. Platinum Games, Paramount Studios. I wonder if it's gonna have that hard. I wonder if it's gonna have that difficulty spike that the Ninja Gaiden games had. I'm locked in. I may even totality and blah blah blah. I may even when it goes live, I may even try to stream this thing. Platinum Games. Xbox. Hang PlayStation 5, bro. PlayStation 5 costs $1,000. Short trailer development team change. So I'll put it up. I'll pull it up after I get done with the stream and take a look at it. And then I can sit down and kind of chop it up about that. Because I got a couple of other like more media things that are coming out that I want to talk about anyway. The new God of War, which I'm hyped about because I'm a God of War nerd. I don't care if it's just Faye. I want the new God of War game, and so this will just go into my pull list of games I want to play. All right, so I'm gonna check it out when we get done. Where are we at? I'm trying to see where we're at on my thing. Real quick. So I don't know who here has like been following like the Marvel, like where they're going, like the absolute lack of direction in the Marvel Comics universe regarding the status of mutants. They just wrapped up the Storm series. XX Caliber, I'm calling it now. All right. I'll take that bet. I like that. So we're just getting like I feel like X-Men specifically are in this weird holding place until Marvel decides to have its next big crossover event and they decide what to do with it, or they release their next film. And the X-Men books have been kind of stagnant. So I'm kind of going back in the lab and reading some of the older Krakoa era stuff. And one of the things that stuck with me with the Krakoa era that was really frustrating was how they redid the classification of Omega level mutant. I've talked about it on the stream before, but for those that don't know, when they sat down and decided that they were going to redo the classifications for Omega level mutant, it used to be this person's power set is such that it can exist without a physical body, or it's just this overwhelming power that it was this really high level of power that had to do with existing without a physical form and things along those lines. And then it ended up in the Krakoa era, they said, how do they put it? This mutant in this specific category has no upper limit to what they can do in this specific category of mutants. And then that's how they described it. So they basically take the concept of Omega level and said, well, anybody can be Omega level as long as you're really, really good at it. And that's when they introduced all the different Apocalypse kids and all the other stuff in his other family and things along those lines, and the Rocco mutants and stuff like that. And it really muddied the water of what Omega level is. And the reason why I'm pissed off about it is they introduced this character, Lacayan. And I actually did an entire segment that you guys are going to be seeing here about it. But they introduced this character, which was basically a two-headed wolf centaur thing with arm blades. And they're like, this is an Omega level mutant. How? Well, they're like, well, it's the same kind of mutant that Wolverine is. Oh, okay. So what makes him Omega level? Well, they're a great debater and they have healing powers. Like that's not an Omega level mutant. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about how they nerfed the entire term of Omega level mutant and just completely watered it down, and made it something that's not. It's kind of like the concept of the evil Superman clone. Like you can only go to that well so many times, right? Or the evil Batman. There's only so many times you can respin that narrative before you have to start coming up with new stories and ideas. And so I'm gonna pull a K and I'll put him up on the screen. And Lacan isn't like Lacan isn't the one I want to pick on, but just endemic of the larger problem that they introduced in the Krakoa era when it came to mutants and mutant classifications. One, I think that they just drew this character and said this character looks really cool, and that's as far as it went. I think they said this is a cool looking character, and then that's it. I don't think that they put any other thought into why this character needs to exist. That's just that's just my take on it. Um, I don't think that it went any past that. And they said, okay, we drew this character, we need to do something with it. All right, so we're gonna make them an Omega level mutant. They live on Araco, and they are really good at debating. And Lacan's not the only one with that name in the Marvel universe. There's plenty, but it's Lacan Two Wolves, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, you made a pretty cool looking character. Um, I don't necessarily know the function of said character, what they're supposed to do, but the way that they put him in there, he looks cool. But then when it's time to have him stand up and do stuff, it's a one shot. Like he got one shot. They one shot his ass. Like that was it. He just popped up in the books, and then one shot, dude was out the paint. I'll show it to you. X-Men Red. I think they came up with this fantastic looking thing and said, this character looks awesome. We're gonna make them an Omega level mutant. And there's no power, defined power that qualifies them to do this. Regenerative healing factor, enhanced senses and all the other stuff. And they said a good debater because they have two brains. They're just making shit up. And I know that's the nature of comic books, but really, we're saying that this character is an Omega level mutant and Iceman is an Omega level mutant, right? Well, I get Iceman being an Omega level mutant. They have plenty of demonstrations of Robbie's powers or Bobby's powers in that context. The most we see out of this character is they're in a panel looking cool and then they get shot. And the other side is I'm pretty sure that they stole the idea from the werewolf game, from the NES werewolf game, and you have to be an old man, an older person to know what I'm talking about. But there's an NES werewolf game, and there's no way that this character wasn't there's no way that this character wasn't inspired by this NES game. I basically forced my mom to buy this game for me. There's no way in hell. There's no way that this character was not inspired by this weird ass werewolf game that just came out of nowhere, where you had a werewolf with arm blades. Like I just that defies logic that somebody said, I got this in the tank, y'all watch this. And they just whipped out this they just whipped out this character out off the rip, just off the top of the head, like, hey, boom, there it is. I begged my mom to get this game, bro. Like, mom, please, I must have this. Cause I saw the box art and I'm like, yo. I saw the box art and was absolutely completely blown away by it. Like, I have to have this game. And that's when they could like lie to you on the box art and tell you that the game is about one thing and it's really not. So yeah, that's the werewolf game. It sucked. It sucked. I had two brains. Once I saw the arm blades, I'm like, this is like, yeah. I had to admit it because I actually fought it because I played it. I'm like, I tried to optimize for it and say, okay, this is good. And the game sucked. It was terrible. But yeah, werewolf, the very last werewolf. That was the game. NES used to trick us that way with some of these games, bro. Some of these games are absolutely just cheeks. And they tricked us with box art that looked like this. Like, imagine being 11 years old. Imagine being 11 years old and you see this. Like, you see this. You're 11 years old. Let me open this on a new tab. You're 11 years old. You're walking, like, I'm in Baltimore visiting family. Share this tab instead. I'm in Baltimore visiting family, and I see this on the shelf. There was no way in hell that I was not going to get this game. There was no way. There was no way. There was no way I was going to leave that store without this game. And I put in, when I finally got a chance to play it at my house, when we got back, it was terrible. It was difficult. It didn't make any sense. It was a platformer. You were barely a werewolf. You had to do all these levels. It's kind of like Altered Beast. Yeah, it was kind of like Altered Beast, except it sucked, and that was it. But I'm certain that this Two Wolves guy is based on that entire werewolf NES game. There's no way that they're not. There's no way. It defies logic. You don't have. There are certain thoughts that didn't exist without being inspired by something else, and there's no way that the Two Wolves guy existed without. I just don't believe it. I don't buy it. But yeah, Nintendo, Data East, bro. Data East was responsible for a lot of abominations. And the ending of the game was the werewolf holding the the other side is it came with a comic book. I think that's how they wrote me. I really do think that's how they wrote me in. Because I remember this comic book. It came with a comic book. And maybe that's how they finally got me, like, yeah. We're gonna put a comic book in here. I think that's how they got me, as a comic book, because I remember the game had a little comic book inside of it. I'm like, oh, like it was speaking to me, and I'm like, Mom, you got to get this. And so she decided that it's easier to just shut me up and give me this stupid game than sit there and listen to me complain all the way back to all the way in the drive all the way home. This game was trash. It was so bad. It was so bad. It's bad enough where I might actually see if I can find it and play it on stream. Just because it's one of those old Nintendo platformers that just came out near the end of its life cycle. And they just tricked everybody. Like, they tricked everybody into thinking that this was going to be good. Like I said, it came with a comic book, and it looks like the name was Warwolf at first, but the port ended up becoming Werewolf: The Last Warrior or something like that. Yeah, it was really bad. It was super bad. All right, I've belabored that point. So anyway, the thing about the Omega level mutants is the new ones they don't even have things that make them Omega level precisely. Like the one I always pick on is Iska the Unbeaten. She's an Omega level mutant. Well, you would say, well, what's her power set? She doesn't lose. What do you mean she doesn't? That's her power. Iska's Omega level power is she doesn't lose. And what do you mean? She doesn't lose. And so it's like, so is it reality warping, manipulation, battle savvy, strategy? What is it? Well, she just doesn't lose. It's a dope design. I'm not going to front. Iska's design is cold. I love Iska the Unbeaten's design. But I think that they came up with the concept of this hero and didn't really, I don't think they really fleshed it out. I don't think that they really took any time with it. It like just came up with this dope ass concept and said, okay, well, she's Iska the Unbeaten, and that's her. And so her power set is she never takes a loss. Okay, cool. How does it actually work in combat in the books? And well, what happens when she's faced with somebody that she has to defeat? or somebody that she's gonna have difficult time feeding. Well, then she just switches sides. That's not a superpower. That is not a superpower. I'm sorry. That is not an ability. Switching sides. I'm gonna show you Iska. Iska is pretty awesome. So this is Iska the Unbeaten. And Iska's power is she never loses. And like I said, when they brought in Apocalypse's grandfather, granduncle, whatever, and he was overwhelming all the mutants and absolutely obliterating them, Iska just said, you know what, I'm gonna just switch sides. And that was what she did. And she just started fighting on the other side of the bad guy because she's unbeaten and so she can't take a loss. It's the dumbest power set. That is not a power. That is not a mutant ability. That is just making a business decision. Her power is making business decisions, but doesn't make somebody an Omega level mutant. So I think that's what plagued that era of the X-Men. Sorry, I'm all off my outline here, y'all. So Omega level used to feel like a category for mutants that transcended normal boundaries and stuff like that. But now it's just, do we have somebody who we want to say is super powerful without really clearly defining what makes them super powerful? We're going to call them Omega level. I remember there was a Sobanar of the Depths, and Sobanar of the Depths was a living ocean ecosystem in a body. And that sounds good until you actually have to explain what that power actually does. And they couldn't, but they were an Omega level mutant. They introduced all the Araco mutants as Omega level just to bump up the threat the X-Men were facing, and they never really paid it off because a lot of them in the last battle, they were getting one shot. They're absolutely getting drugged by Thanos' uncle. Like, he was absolutely just dog walking every single one of these people, killing them with one blow after another. It's like, why did you introduce them as Omega level as this enhanced threat? And they're absolutely getting dog walked by one guy. One very powerful guy, Uranos, one guy that's very, very powerful. He's an Eternal. He is kind of the progenitor of Thanos, but come on, man. He's dog walking these people, and you're saying that he's an Omega level mutant. He went toe to toe with Legion, and got stalemated by Legion. But Legion even had to retreat off of that. But these Omega level mutants who are supposed to be all powerful, an entire nation of Omega level mutants, they're absolutely getting obliterated by this dude. Like, he's not even struggling with them. It's such a weird thing. And I think that's where the entire Araco Krakoa saga started falling apart from me. Just kept moving the goalpost around, right? Used to be Storm, Magneto, Exodus, those guys, and then Iceman, who else? Who am I missing? Jean Grey, those as a mega level. And now we're just introducing random people that have cool designs that are a mega level. And Marvel kind of destroyed the category. I hope at some point they redefine what it is, because I think they even got so far in the weeds. They're like, well, Franklin Richards is no longer an Omega level mutant just randomly because we decided, because it was convenient for the plot. And then now Franklin Richards is an Omega level mutant again. It just didn't make any sense. So anyway, last thing, we'll do Ask a Dad and wrap this up because I've been talking for a minute and I'm kind of losing steam a little bit here. So one of the things I learned when I was running my group homes and my residential shelters, one of the things we had to work on with my staff was transitions. And transitions are the time in between events. So a natural transition in my shelter was we're finishing up dinner and heading into chore time. And typically those transitions normally brought a level of uncertainty to the kids in the program. And that's typically when we saw our worst behaviors, is during transition times. And so the thing I was big about with the staff is ritualize the transition. Make the transition something that has a sequence that you build up to. It happens and you plan all the way through the entire transition, and you can minimize behaviors. And I found that to be useful in the frame of running the programs, but then also dealing with my ADHD and ritualizing the transition times. And because that's one of the things I have a very difficult time with, is shifting gears. Like right now, I'm dragging this I'm dragging this live stream out just because there's a transition involved where I have to transition to being done with my live stream and go off with the rest of my night. And that puts a little bit of anxiety in my heart, to be honest with you. And so by having a ritual that goes along with the transition, it makes it easier to shift from one task to another. So I'll talk about how I use it in the context of the residential youth shelter, and maybe you could find edges to apply it to your life as if you're an ADHD or if you're a parent just out here figuring out how to handle the transition from dinner to bath time to bedtime. Okay. So a lot of behaviors with kids don't happen because the next task is impossible. It happens because the transition is unmanaged. Kids struggle in the gap between activities, and ritual gives that transition a little bit of structure. Okay. So when we talk about transitioning, that means just from moving from one activity to another. Um, and that's typically, I'll tell staff, you're going to see fights during that gap between chores and between dinner and chores. And so what I did was, okay, so this is what the schedule is. We have dinner. From dinner, we move into the house meeting. And then the house meeting, we instantly go in the chore. So there's no gap. There's a step between each way. Don't vary from this. If you vary from it, you're going to have problems. And the days that wasn't the flow, that's when we had our fights. But we made a ritual out of it so the kids know what to expect, what's coming up. They're prepared for it before it happens. And I think there's some utility in using that in your homes where you're working, if your kids have a very difficult time transitioning from bath time to bedtime, build a little bit of a routine, a micro routine that happens, you guys get to pick out the story that we're going to read. Okay. You get to pick out your pajamas, for us, it was, making sure that everybody had brushed their teeth, put on lotion, put on the right pajamas and stuff, and then have a story in between. And so there was steps and sequences between, so that when it was bedtime, we never really had massive behaviors because the kids just kind of expected what was coming up. And I think that there is utility in ritualizing those steps in between. So that's what ritualizing the transition is. Now, for an adult who has a difficult time with transitions, typically, if I have a routine established with the transition, it makes life a lot easier. My normal routine was take the kids to school. On the way back to the house, I'd stop by the gym and work out because the drive from home to the house was a transition. And in order to keep myself from going astray, that's what I would normally do. I would drive to the gym. That was part of my routine. And on the days where I didn't have my routine, my day was kind of screwed. Okay. So the transition wasn't movement. It wasn't just movement. It's an emotional handoff. We're asking the kid to stop being one version of themselves. You're asking yourself to stop being one version of themselves and become another version like that. And you have to build in the transition to that piece. Okay. That's where bedtime goes left. That's where your routines and your habits kind of fall off the tracks because you may not have a ritual as you switch from one task to another. Okay. So talked about the group home, talked about the ritual side of things. Um, Bedtime should not start at bedtime. Bedtime should be a step, a sequence, a series of steps that lead up to the event of bedtime. So by the time bedtime gets there, you've fulfilled all the steps and you've left no room for behavior or errant behavior. Okay. It starts before we start asking kids to go to bed. Okay. It starts after dinner. After dinner, clean up. You guys get ready for a bath, shower, whatever. After that, we pick stories, pick pajamas, and then we go on with the process of moving to bed without a lot of gaps in between. So the transition isn't just abrupt shifting from one thing to another. Okay. Let's see. So a lot of times, and the reason why that's so important is because oftentimes, um, as parents specifically, we are conditioned not to address things until they become a problem. And then when it becomes a problem, that's when we want to give attention to it. If we actually think about the steps that lead up to the problem, you can actually diffuse the problem before it happens. If you have a problematic behavior that you're seeing with your kids, um, look at what was the antecedent? What was the thing that happened before the behavior started coming out? Okay. What steps could we have taken to forestall this behavior? And what lesson can we extract from that? And so that's really what it is, guys. It's just like I said, ritualizing the transition made my life a lot easier to manage kids that were considered ungovernable and unmanageable. So hopefully you guys get a chance to use that. All right. So that's all I got tonight. I've run a little bit long. I've meandered, talked about a lot of different subjects because I haven't ritualized my transition from the live stream to my regular life. So I do appreciate y'all tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Blurting While Dad. I will talk to y'all later. Peace.